The letter arrived on a Tuesday, slipped under the door of Ethan Caldwell's Manhattan penthouse like a ghost from a life he'd buried. Its edges were worn, the handwriting jagged, as if scrawled in a hurry by someone who knew him too well. Ethan, once a titan of New York's tech scene, now a recluse at 32, felt his heart lurch as he read the names signed at the bottom. Jasper. 3 years ago, Jasper Reed had been the sun in Ethan's sky. Charismatic, with eyes that sparkled like the Atlantic on a summer day, Jasper had swept into Ethan's world at a charity gala, all charm and promises. Ethan, a self-made millionaire who'd built a cybersecurity empire from nothing, was used to guarding his heart as fiercely as his code. But Jasper was different, or so Ethan thought. Their romance had burned bright, a whirlwind of rooftop dinners, stolen kisses in Central Park, and plans for a future that felt infinite. Until the day Jasper vanished, taking with him $2 million from Ethan's accounts and leaving nothing but a single text. "I'm sorry." Now, holding the letter, Ethan's hands trembled. "I need to see you. I'm in trouble. Portland, Maine. Please." No explanation, no apology, just an address and a plea. Ethan wanted to burn it, to let the ashes of Jasper's betrayal scatter into oblivion. But something in those words, a faint echo of the man he'd loved, pulled him back. He booked a flight that night. Portland was a far cry from Manhattan's steel and glass. The air smelled of salt and pine, and the streets were lined with quaint shops and weather docks. Ethan checked into a small inn by the harbor, his mind a storm of questions. Why now? Why here? He hadn't seen Jasper since the betrayal, hadn't heard his voice since that gutting text. The wound was still raw, a scar that throbbed when he thought of those months of FBI interviews, the headlines screaming tech mogul duped by lover, the pity in his friend's eyes. He'd rebuilt his fortune, but his trust? That was gone. The address led him to a rundown bar on the edge of town, its neon sign flickering like a dying star. Inside, the air was thick with cigarette smoke and regret. Ethan scanned the room, his pulse racing, until he saw him. Jasper sat in a corner booth, his once golden hair dulled, his frame thinner, almost fragile. But those eyes, they were the same, piercing and haunted. Ethan's breath caught as Jasper looked up, their gazes locking across the dim room. "Ethan," Jasper said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You came." Ethan slid into the booth, every nerve screaming to walk away. "Talk," he said, his tone cold. "You've got 5 minutes before I'm gone." Jasper's hands fidgeted with a glass of cheap whiskey. "I didn't want to drag you into this, but I had no choice. They're after me, Ethan. The people I got mixed up with after I left you. They're dangerous. They—" Ethan's laugh was bitter. "You mean the people you ran off with my money to impress? Save it, Jasper. I'm not here to play hero." "It's not like that," Jasper said, leaning forward. His eyes were desperate, almost pleading. "I didn't take your money from me. I was trying to save someone. My sister, Lila. She was sick, leukemia. The treatments were bleeding us dry, and I panicked." Ethan froze. Jasper had never mentioned a sister. Was this another lie, another con? But the pain in Jasper's voice felt real, raw in a way Ethan hadn't heard before. "You expect me to believe that?" he asked, his voice softer now, wavering. "I don't expect anything," Jasper said. "But I'm telling you the truth. I got in too deep with the wrong people, loan sharks, dealers. I thought I could pay them off with what I took from you. But it wasn't enough. They want more, and they know about you. They know what we were." Ethan's blood ran cold. "What do you mean they know?" Jasper glanced around, lowering his voice. "They've been watching you. They think you'll pay to keep me alive. And if you don't," he trailed off, his eyes dropping to the table. The bar seemed to close in around them, the hum of conversation fading into a dull roar in Ethan's ears. He wanted to hate Jasper, to walk away and let him drown in his own mess. But the memory of their nights together, Jasper's laugh, the way he'd trace constellations on Ethan's skin, clawed at him. He wasn't sure if it was love or madness, but he couldn't leave. Not yet. "Tell me everything," Ethan said finally. "No lies this time." Jasper nodded, and as he began to speak, Ethan felt the ground shift beneath him. The story wasn't just about money or betrayal. It was about survival, sacrifice, and a love that had never quite died. But as Jasper's words spilled out, Ethan realized he was stepping into a world far darker than he'd imagined, one where trust was a luxury he might not survive. Jasper's story unfolded like a confession in a cathedral, each word heavy with guilt and fear. He spoke of Lila, his younger sister, diagnosed with leukemia at 19. Their parents were long gone, and Jasper had been her anchor, working odd jobs to keep her alive. When the hospital bills soared past what he could scrape together, he turned to a man named Victor Kane, a loan shark with a smile like a knife. Kane had given Jasper the money, but at a cost, a debt that grew faster than he could pay. Desperate, Jasper had used a charm to get close to Ethan, hacking into his accounts not out of greed, but to save Lila. It hadn't been enough. Lila died 6 months after Jasper fled, and Kane's grip tightened, pulling Jasper into a web of crime to settle the score. Ethan listened, his heart a battlefield of doubt and empathy. The bar's dim light cast shadows across Jasper's face, highlighting the lines that hadn't been there 3 years ago. "Why didn't you tell me?" Ethan asked, his voice cracking. "I would have helped." Jasper's eyes glistened. "I was ashamed. You were this brilliant, untouchable man, and I was just me. I thought if you knew how broken my life was, you'd walk away." Ethan wanted to scream that he wouldn't have, that he'd loved Jasper enough to carry his burdens. But the sting of betrayal held him back. Instead, he asked, "What do they want now?" "They want you," Jasper said. "Kane knows you're worth millions. He thinks I can lure you in, get you to pay a ransom for me. If I don't deliver, they'll kill me. And if you get involved, they'll come for you too." Ethan's mind raced. He'd built his fortune on outsmarting threats, hackers, rivals, corporate spies. But this was different. This was personal. "Where's Kane now?" he asked. Jasper hesitated. "He's got a place outside town, a warehouse by the docks. That's where they're holding me. I slipped away to get this letter to you, but they'll know I'm gone soon." Ethan's instinct screamed to call the police, to let the authorities handle it. But Jasper's next words stopped him cold. "Kane has people inside the local PD. If you go to them, I'm dead." The weight of the decision pressed down on Ethan. He could walk away, leave Jasper to his fate, and return to his safe, lonely life. Or he could dive into the chaos, risking everything for a man who'd already broken him once. The choice shouldn't have been hard, but it was. "Take me to him," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. "If Kane wants me, he'll get me. But we're doing this my way." Jasper's eyes widened. "Ethan, you don't know what you're walking into." "I know enough," Ethan snapped. "You want my help? Then trust me." They left the bar under the cover of night, the main air sharp against Ethan's skin. Jasper led him to a beat-up sedan parked behind a dumpster, and they drove toward the docks in silence. The warehouse loomed ahead, a hulking shadow against the moonlit water. Ethan's mind churned with plans, contingencies, the same way he'd once debugged code. But this wasn't a system he could control. This was a game of lives, and he was already in too deep. Inside, the warehouse was a maze of crates and flickering lights. Kane was waiting, a tall man with cold eyes and a scar across his cheek. He grinned as Ethan stepped forward, Jasper at his side. "The millionaire himself," Kane said, his voice smooth as venom. "You're either brave or stupid coming here." "I'm here for him," Ethan said, nodding toward Jasper. "Name your price." Kane laughed, a sound that echoed off the walls. "Oh, it's not just money anymore, Caldwell. You're part of the deal now." Before Ethan could respond, a door slammed open behind them. 2 men appeared, guns in hand, their faces hard and unyielding. Ethan's heart sank as he realized Jasper hadn't lied. Kane wasn't just a thug. He was a predator, and Ethan had walked right into his trap. The warehouse air was thick with the smell of rust and salt, the kind of place where secrets went to die. Ethan stood tall, his eyes locked on Kane, refusing to show the fear clawing at his chest. Jasper was beside him, his breathing uneven, his hands clenched into fists. The 2 armed men flanked them, their guns glinting under the fluorescent lights. Ethan's mind raced, calculating exits, weaknesses, anything to gain the upper hand. "You think you can just walk in here and negotiate?" Kane said, circling them like a shark. "You're not in your boardroom now, Caldwell. This is my world." Ethan's voice was steady. "Then let's talk business. You want money, I've got it. But you let him go first." He gestured to Jasper, whose eyes flickered with something. Hope, maybe, or guilt. Kane's smile was predatory. "You're sweet on him, aren't you? Even after he bled you dry. Love makes fools of us all, doesn't it?" Ethan didn't flinch, but the words cut deep. He glanced at Jasper, searching for the man he'd loved, the one who'd made him believe in forever. Was he still there beneath the lies? "Just tell me what you want," Ethan said. Kane leaned in, his voice low. 10 million. Wire by tomorrow. And you stay here until it's done. Insurance, you understand." Ethan's stomach twisted. 10 million was a drop in the bucket for him, but handing it over meant trusting Kane wouldn't kill them both once the money hit. He needed time, a plan. "I'll need access to my accounts," he said. "Give me a laptop." Kane laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think I'm stupid? You'll get your laptop when I say so. For now, you and your boyfriend get cozy in the back." The men shoved Ethan and Jasper toward a small room at the warehouse's edge, a concrete cell with a single bulb swinging overhead. The door slammed shut, the lock clicking with finality. Jasper sank to the floor, his head in his hands. "I'm so sorry, Ethan," he whispered. I never meant for this. Ethan paced, his mind a blur of anger and strategy. Save it, he said, but his voice lacked the venom he wanted. Just tell me what you know about Kane. Anything that can help us. Jasper looked up, his face pale. He's ruthless, but he's not the top dog. There's someone above him, someone he's scared of. I heard him on the phone once, talking about a Mr. Gray. That's all I know. Ethan filed the name away. It was a thread, thin but something. He knelt beside Jasper, their faces inches apart. Why did you really bring me here, he asked. Was it just to save your skin? Jasper's eyes searched his, raw and unguarded. I wanted to make things right. I know I destroyed you, Ethan, but I never stopped. He cut himself off, swallowing hard. I never stopped loving you. The words hit Ethan like a tidal wave, dragging up memories he'd fought to bury. He wanted to believe them, to let them fill the hollow space in his chest. But trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. Not now. We're getting out of this, he said instead. Together. Hours passed, the silence broken only by the drip of a leaky pipe. Ethan's mind worked overtime, piecing together a plan. He noticed a loose vent in the wall, barely visible in the dim light. If they could get to it, it might lead to a way out, or at least a chance to eavesdrop on Kane. He whispered the idea to Jasper, who nodded, his jaw set. They worked quietly, prying at the vent with a piece of broken pipe. It gave way with a soft creak, revealing a narrow duct. Ethan went first, crawling through the tight space, Jasper behind him. The duct led to a larger room, where Kane's voice echoed. Ethan peered through a grate, catching snippets of a phone call. Gray's not happy, Kane was saying. He wants the money by tomorrow, or we're both done. Ethan's pulse quickened. Whoever this Mr. Gray was, he was the key. If they could find him, they might find leverage. But as they crawled back to the cell, a shout rang out. The vent had been noticed. Footsteps thundered toward them, and Ethan knew their time was up. The warehouse erupted into chaos as Kane's men dragged Ethan and Jasper back to the cell. Kane stood waiting, his face twisted with fury. You think you're clever, don't you? He snarled, grabbing Ethan by the collar. Try that again, and you're both dead. Ethan met his gaze, unflinching. You need me alive, Kane? No money, no deal. Kane shoved him back, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. Ethan caught it, the fear of someone answering to a higher power. Mr. Gray, whoever he was, he held the strings, and Ethan needed to cut them. Back in the cell, Jasper was shaking, his bravado gone. They're going to kill us, he whispered. I should have never written that letter. Ethan grabbed his shoulders, forcing him to meet his eyes. We're not done yet. You said Kane's scared of this Gray guy. We use that. We find him, we turn the tables. Jasper shook his head. You don't get it, Ethan. Gray's a ghost. No one knows who he is. Kane's terrified, and that's saying something. Ethan's mind churned. He'd built his career on finding patterns in chaos, cracking systems no one else could. If Gray was the key, he'd find him. But first, they needed to survive the night. He noticed a rusty nail in the corner, half buried in the concrete. It wasn't much, but it was something. He tucked it into his sleeve, a last-ditch weapon. Morning came, and Kane returned with a laptop. You've got 1 hour, he said. Transfer the money, or I start cutting pieces off your boyfriend. Ethan sat at the laptop, his fingers steady despite the gun at his back. He logged into a dummy account he'd set up years ago for emergencies, one with just enough funds to look convincing. As he typed, he slipped in a line of code, a tracker, subtle enough to go unnoticed. If Kane took the bait, Ethan could trace the money's destination. It was a long shot, but it was all he had. The transfer went through, and Kane's phone pinged with confirmation. He grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. Good boy, he said. Now we wait for Gray's approval. Ethan exchanged a glance with Jasper. The tracker was live, pinging a location, a mansion in upstate New York. It wasn't much, but it was a start. What happens now? Ethan asked, buying time. Kane's smile faded. You pray Gray's in a good mood. Hours later, they were moved to a van, blindfolded and bound. The drive was long, the road bumpy, and Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. When the blindfolds came off, they were in a lavish study, all mahogany and leather. A man sat at a desk, his face obscured by shadows. Mr. Gray. Ethan Caldwell, the man said, his voice smooth and cold. You've caused quite a stir. Ethan's heart pounded, but he kept his voice level. And you're the man who thinks he can scare me. Gray chuckled, stepping into the light. He was older, maybe 60, with sharp features and eyes like a predator's. You're not here to negotiate, he said. You're here to pay for your lover's mistakes. Jasper flinched, but Ethan held Gray's gaze. Then let's talk. What do you really want? Gray leaned forward. Everything. Your company, your fortune, your life. You're a liability now, Caldwell. And liabilities don't last long. Ethan's blood ran cold, but he saw the opening. Gray was arrogant, overconfident. And that was a weakness Ethan could exploit. He just needed time and a miracle. The study was a cage of opulence, every surface gleaming with wealth and menace. Ethan stood before Mr. Gray, his hands still bound, Jasper trembling beside him. The tracker he planted was their only hope, silently sending data to a server he prayed the FBI could access. But time was running out, and Gray's patience was thinner than Ethan's odds. "You're a smart man, Caldwell," Gray said, swirling a glass of scotch. "But you're playing a game you can't win. Your money's mine, and your boyfriend's debt is paid in blood." Ethan's mind raced. He'd faced down boardrooms and hackers, but this was different. This was life and death. "You don't want me dead," he said. "You want my network, my tech. Kill me, and it's gone." Gray's eyes narrowed. "You think you're indispensable?" "I know I am," Ethan shot back. "My systems are locked tighter than Fort Knox. You need me alive to get in." It was a bluff, but Ethan sold it with every ounce of his confidence. Gray hesitated, and that was enough. Ethan glanced at Jasper, a silent signal to be ready. The nail in his sleeve was still there, a desperate plan forming. Gray stood pacing. "You've got guts, I'll give you that. But guts don't save you from a bullet." Before Ethan could respond, the room shook with a deafening crash. Sirens wailed outside, and red lights flashed through the windows. The FBI. Ethan's tracker had worked. Gray's face twisted with rage as he barked orders to his men, who scrambled for weapons. Ethan moved fast, using the nail to cut his binds. He tackled Jasper to the floor as gunfire erupted, the room a chaos of shouts and shattering glass. "Stay down," he yelled, shielding Jasper with his body. The FBI stormed in, and within minutes, Gray and his men were in cuffs. As the dust settled, Ethan helped Jasper to his feet. They were battered, bruised, but alive. The FBI agent in charge, a woman named Carter, approached. "You're lucky, Caldwell," she said. "Your tracker led us right to Gray. He's been on our radar for years." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "What happens to him?" he asked, glancing at Jasper. Carter's eyes softened. "We'll need his testimony. After that, he's free to go." Outside, the dawn was breaking, painting the sky in hues of hope. Ethan and Jasper stood by the van, the weight of the night heavy between them. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Jasper said, his voice breaking. "But I meant what I said. I love you." Ethan looked at him, the man who'd broken his heart, and somehow pieced it back together. "I don't know if I can trust you again," he said honestly. "But I want to try." Jasper's eyes filled with tears, and he nodded. They stood there, two broken men on the edge of something new, as the sun rose over a world that suddenly felt a little less heavy. Ethan didn't know if they'd make it, but for the first time in years, he believed in second chances, not just for Jasper, but for himself. The scars would remain, but so would the possibility of healing, of love that could endure even the worst betrayals.